In the previous video, we added space around widgets. This video will take us through expanding widgets dynamically. You probably noticed in previous videos that widgets have a capability to extend themselves to the space they need to visually display their text. Java introduced the concept of dynamic GUI layout management. In comparison, visual development IDEs like Visual Studio, .NET lay out the GUI in a visual manner and are basically hard-coding the X and Y coordinates of UI elements. Using tkinter, this dynamic capability creates both an advantage and a little bit of a challenge because sometimes our GUI dynamically expands when we would prefer it rather not to be so dynamic. Well, we are dynamic Python programmers, so we could figure out how to make the best use of this fantastic behavior. At the beginning of the previous video, we added a label frame widget. This moved some of our controls to the center of column 0. We might not wish this modification to our GUI layout. Next, we will explore some ways to fix this. Let us first become aware of the subtle details that are going on in our GUI layout in order to understand it better. We're using the Grid Layout Manager widget, and it lays out our widgets in a zero-based grid. Using the Grid Layout Manager, what is happening is that the width of any given column is determined by the longest name, or widget, in that column. This affects all rows. By adding our label frame widget and giving it a title that is longer than some hard-coded size widget, like the top left label, and the text entry below it, we dynamically move those widgets to the center of column 0, adding space to the left and right sides of those widgets. Incidentally, because we used the sticky property for the check button and scroll text widgets, those remain attached to the left side of the frame. Now let's look in more detail at the output from the first video of this section, arranging labels.py. We added this code to create the label frame and then placed labels into this frame. Since the text property of the label frame, which is displayed as the title of the label frame, is longer than both our enter a name label and the text box entry below it, those two widgets are dynamically centered with the new width of column 0. The check button and radio button widgets in column 0 did not get centered because we used the sticky equals tk.w property when we created those widgets. For the scroll text widget, we used sticky equals tk.we, which binds the widget to both the west, aka left, and east, aka right, side of the frame. Let's remove the sticky property from the scroll text widget and observe the effect this change has. Now, our GUI has new space around the scroll text widget, both on the left and right sides. Because we used the column span equals 3 property, our scroll text widget still spans all 3 columns. If we remove column span equals 3, we get the following GUI, which is not what we want. Now, our scroll text only occupies column 0, and because of its size, it stretches the layout. One way to get our layout back to where we were before adding the label frame is to adjust the grid column position. Change the column value from 0 to 1. Now, our GUI looks like this. Because we are still using individual widgets, our layout can get messed up. By moving the column value of the label frame from 0 to 1, we were able to get the controls back to where they used to be, and where we prefer them to be. At least the leftmost label, text, checkbox, scroll text, and radio button widgets are now located where we intended them to be. The second label and text entry located in column 1 have aligned themselves to the center of the length of the labels in a frame widget. So we basically moved our alignment challenge 1 column to the right. It is not so visible because the size of the choose a number label is almost the same as the size of the labels in a frame title. And so the column width was already close to the new width generated by the label frame. In the next video, we will embed frames within frames to avoid the accidental misalignment of widgets we just experienced in this video.